Today on the show, my guest is Jerry Wolking from Keller Williams Greater Quad Cities, which is actually Illinois and Iowa. So there's four cities for those of you not in the Midwest and not familiar with, I guess, Quad Cities was self-explanatory, but it actually borders two states, Illinois and Iowa. But let me tell you more about Jerry. And by the way, before I get into Jerry's bio, Jerry is Alex Wolking's father. Alex is somebody we featured recently on our show. We were so incredibly impressed with Alex. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I really encourage you to do that. And Alex is like, oh, I learned everything from my dad. So we're like, we probably should bring his dad on too, who's also a very successful agent for 30 plus years. But let me go through more of Jerry's bio. Jerry's been in the business since April of 1993. That is 30 plus years. Congratulations. He started as a part-time agent, like so many of us, and became a full-time agent a year later in 1994 after selling his landscape company. He is licensed in Iowa and Illinois, and Jerry is one of these rare types of agents who is able to successfully do residential and commercial. So we're going to talk a little bit about how he manages both of those lanes. He is also a graduate of the Realtors Institute and a certified negotiation expert. In my opinion, the most one of the designations I think agents should explore, because certainly is something you can tell your clients that you are a certified negotiation expert. I'm a huge fan of that. Also, Jerry has served on the Professional Standards Committee, the Grievance Committee, and the Commercial Committee, and now teaches classes to realtors on various topics at his local association. Jerry, I'm sorry. You can learn more about Jerry at his website. We will have a link to this in the show notes and in the description, which is QCBizbox.com, and goes over what Jerry is all about. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Jerry and I we were just talking sort of backstage, of if that's the right expression, and it was really a lot of fun because Jerry is you're so much like your son, and he is just such a wonderful young man in this Chicago market, and we're so grateful to have him on the show, and now we're so happy to have you. So you've been doing this. Congratulations on 30 years, by the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Been a long haul. That's for sure.
Well, right now, actually, Jerry, let's talk about how you got in. So I know you were in landscaping. You had a business, and why the switch from landscaping to, I guess the way I think about it, landscaping is one of those industries that seems to never go out of fashion. And real estate, say people have to live somewhere. People need to maintain their properties, their lawns, etc. So why the switch from landscaping all those years ago?
Well, thank you for asking. I've done many things, DJ. I tell people all the time, if I died tomorrow, I have lived a full life. I've been a drummer in a heavy metal band for a long time. I raced motorcycles semi-professionally. I sold life insurance. I was a welder at John Deere. I've been an auto mechanic. I've been a contractor, many different things. And I found a love of landscape back in the late 80s, early 90s, and still do a lot of it today. But, the body only holds up for so long. They don't make a laptop that'll plant a 400-pound tree. So that takes its toll after a while. But I had always had an interest in real estate. And here in the Midwest, and landscape season, is pretty short-lived. And when it gets November, December, all of a sudden there's no lawns to mow. You're not planting flowers, and the ground is frozen for doing any planting. So the winters would be scarce, very scarce. And I was actually working in a body shop, and I was getting paid $100 a car to paint cars out in Geneseo, Illinois. No heat, had a little space heater, and this guy was flipping cars, and he gave me $100 a car to paint them. I was miserable, and I was sitting in this little office, and I happened to be reading a newspaper on my lunch break, and it said a career in real estate. Reading in the newspaper, and I'm like, I've always had an interest in real estate to see what it's like. So I had to borrow the money. Long story short, I was so broke I couldn't pay attention. I had to borrow the money to go to get my real estate class started. And I did. I went through it, passed the class with flying colors, passed my test, and then next you know, here I am, a real estate agent. And that was in April of '93. Still had my landscape company. And as you know, real estate being a commission business, I'd never worked in a commission world before. it was scarce to start with, because it is far too easy. Here's my quote of the day: "It is far too easy to get a real estate license." There are so many people in this industry who shouldn't be in it. And let me preface, DJ, by saying I'm probably going to say something that offends someone today, because I love your show. The name of your show is very fitting. So we're going to get real here today.
Let's get real.
Yeah, there you go. So, I started out like most other agents, taking open houses from the big producers who didn't want to do them. And at the time, I was working for the one of the largest brokers in the Quad Cities. They were the largest broker in the Quad Cities at the time, and we had this thing called floor duty, where you could sit at this table in this little office for 2 hour shifts. Each agent got 2 hour shifts, and any phone calls that came into the office inquiring about listings went to the floor duty person, and that was your business to capitalize. So I was taking as many floor duty sessions as I could get, most of them in the evening hours, 5 to 7, 5 to 6, because I was out planting trees and mowing lawns during the day. And what had happened was I was getting busy enough after floor duty and open houses that I would literally change clothes 3 and 4 times a day. I would go out and mow 2 lawns, change clothes, go show a house, go out and plant 2 trees, change clothes, go out and show a house. That was going on and on for months. And the turning point for me was I had a showing at a condominium in East Moline, and I was planting trees all day. I was mud from head to toe, and I was late for my appointment, like 15 minutes late. And I did not have time to go home and change clothes. So I drove to the appointment with my rig, had my, my mowers and everything sticking out the back. I'm in my landscape gear. I'm mud from knees down to my boots, dried mud. And as I walk up to the showing, I'm 15 minutes late. And the gentleman is sitting on the front porch of this condo,
Oh,
on the front stoop. And I said, "Hi, my name's Jerry Wolking. I'm the realtor here to show you the property." And he just looked at me. He goes, "Are you a real estate agent?" And I said, "Yes, sir. And I also own a landscape company." And this was the turning point in my career. This day, this gentleman looked at me, he had a very stern look on his face, and he said, "I'm not interested in a part-time agent." The next week,
ah,
the next week, I sold the company. I sold the landscape company and went 100% into real estate. That was a big jump. And I went 5 months, my first 5 months, with no paycheck. And I'd been used to, having steady income. I had employees, I had trucks, I had, plenty of contracts to do. I sold my company to my dad, who was retired from the military, looking for something to do. He, by the way, today still runs that same company to this day, off of a lot of the same clients that we had back in the early 90s. But it was that push of that gentleman telling me I'm not interested in a part-time agent that made me go, I can't do this anymore. I can't continue to go changing clothes 3 and 4 times a day. This went on for months, and it was wearing me out. And I wasn't succeeding at a high level at either position now,
right.
because I'm part-time landscaper, part-time real estate agent. So it was probably the greatest slap of reality I could ever get for him to say that. And that's when it turned, and I started taking off from there. And I was lucky enough to have a broker by the name of Irene Romeo, who said to me, "You've got great stuff, kid. You need to go to GRI now. That's where you need to get." So I did my first full-time year. I started GRI. I think he did a fall session, spring session, fall session. I did them consecutively, learned a lot, and it catapulted me forward on being able to get my business started and growing. So I've been surrounded by a lot of great people who helped me get started and saw something in me that was worth nurturing. So I'm very fortunate that way.
And for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with GRI, do you mind sharing just a little bit about what that is for our
Yeah,
audience?
that's a Graduate Realtors Institute. One of the things I noticed today, I've written several real estate classes. My partner Deborah and I, we've written classes. She does all the technical stuff, the PowerPoints and all that, and we presented these classes to realtors, and now the board of realtors has picked them up. But GRI is a segment of classes from everything about marketing, about personal growth, about the real estate industry, about appraisal. It's a great place for residential agents to go and get a lot of education in a short period of time, because that's like 4 and 5 consecutive days of classes. And one of the things that I have noticed is brokerages, at least in our area, and please know everything I'm saying is based on our area because that's what I know, they're fragmenting so much. It used to be in the early 90s, there were two 800-pound gorillas here in town, and they controlled everything. One of them controlled 52% of the market at one time. So every other house was listed by this brokerage. Well, as these other companies have come into play, Keller Williams, EXP, and all these other companies that are coming, it's fragmented the talent. But what happens when you fragment the talent, unfortunately, is those startup brokerages don't have the resources or the time to train those agents properly. And that creates, now we've got an industry full of the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And it gets chaotic. And you can ask any veteran agent most of the time, it's the new agents that are exciting to watch when they're growing, but they're also the ones that tend to get in the way. And it's not their fault. It's because nobody's teaching them. And that's why I said earlier, it's far too easy to get a real estate license, because real estate pre-license course, they don't teach you anything about the business. It's all law and agency and all of those sort of things, but don't teach you anything about getting through a transaction, how to get through a bad appraisal, how to get through a bad home inspection. And in my opinion, commercial, this is just my opinion, commercial and residential should be two completely different licenses. Why one person
Agreed.
is able to do both is beyond me. They are two different animals. But back to GRI, what GRI does is takes for a small brokerage or a brokerage who doesn't have a training or mentor program, put those new agents through GRI, put them through CRS. The CRS and the GRI courses will teach you years and years of knowledge that you're not getting just by bumping and banging your way through the pinball machine. And you learn I've said I've got enough credit hours from the School of Hard Knocks that I could graduate with a master's degree now. So, but luckily I was at a brokerage that had a great training program. We had a mentor program in place that was very, very helpful. So GRI, CRS for residential agents starting up, that is one of the first places that I would go to start getting your real estate training, unless your brokerage offers it.
Or even in addition to what your brokerage
Even in
offers.
addition to what your offers, because what I see a lot of is a lot of training and exercise and efforts put in the areas of lead generation. Lead generation is awesome, but if you get a bunch of leads and you don't know how to convert them, or you don't know how to keep their transactions together, you're shooting fish in a barrel and they're coming right back to life again through another agent somewhere. It's a bad experience for everyone all around when you don't have knowledge and skills to close a transaction.
Yeah, and let's talk about the current sort of climate for realtors right now. So we're recording this, we're getting close to Thanksgiving, 2023. We know interest rates are higher than buyers would prefer in relation to where they were 3 years ago, not in relation to historic averages, but the buyer temperature out there has cooled a bit because of the interest rates. A lot of people are locked in, or at least feel maybe locked in to a refinance rate they did years ago. I know I feel this way. I have a 3% rate on my primary residence, and I don't want to give that up. And so
Right.
we have a lot of people like me who are in a similar situation. So there's not much inventory, obviously not as many buyers flooding the market. And also it's the end of the year. That tends to slow things down as well. So Jerry, you've been doing this 30 years. What do you know that people who haven't been through this kind of part of the or cycle of the business, maybe some part of the down cycle, what do you know or what would you say to somebody who's struggling right now
Yeah.
in this area?
Great question. So where I pride myself mostly, DJs, in I have, I'm not one of the top 1% producers, as we talked about earlier, but I can weather the storm because I can wear many hats. Being as well experienced in both residential and commercial as I am, it allows me to adapt in many different ways. I can go where the hunt is, and I'm very comfortable going where the hunt is. There's no conversation with any agent that I'm not comfortable having now, regardless of what you produce. I can hold that conversation with you. And there was times when I remember in down markets, it wasn't so much where's my next lead? Where's my next deal? It was, what can I learn to get me that next lead? What can I learn to get me that next deal? I've always built my career on being the chased, not the chaser. And the way I've done that is by learning things and getting in-depth knowledge on different ways to do things. So, when I came in the business in 1993, interest rates were still double digit. So when we hear people talk about now the interest rates are climbing. My first house was 11.75%. And that was on a special lottery drawing rate. I had to stand in line at 5:30 in the morning to get a lottery ticket to get this special low rate of 11.75%. And I was one of the people chosen. So, yes, rates have increased. They've doubled from where we were a year or so ago in some cases. But when those things happen, like when 2008, 2009 rolled around, there was a huge change. Foreclosures were coming on the market everywhere. So my adaptation was, if there's foreclosures and things that's coming on the market, that means the investors are coming out of the woodwork. So how do I get to work with the investors? I got to learn the investment game. And I had some real estate investments before, but I dove deep into figuring out net operating income and what is the vacancy factor, and what's my cost coming in? What's the cost outlay going to be for if I purchase this home for 36,000? What's it going to cost to get it up to 110 so you can be profitable? Learned about holding costs, all of those sort of things. A lot of it I knew already in the back of my mind, but I moved it to the forefront of the mind. So as the market changes, and it is changing, you need to look at other ways that you can be helpful, that you can be of service to the public, that you can be of service maybe to other agents. Because when you don't have something to offer, there's no reason for anyone to call you. So,
Right.
so I just got a call yesterday from a gentleman who wanted to fight his property taxes. His assessment went up considerably, so we took a look at his properties, and I called him yesterday and I said, Chuck, you might want to keep your mouth shut. They got you assessed at $65 a square foot. Shh, be quiet. Don't play that game, because you should be higher than what they're assessing you at. So just that piece of advice and information alone was priceless to him, because he was
Sure.
about to spend $900, $1,000 on 2 appraisals. So just by giving that information, but he's called me multiple times over the last 3 or 4 years. We've done 2 or 3 transactions with this gentleman. But so the point being, there's always somebody buying something. There's always somebody selling something. How do you get in front of those people, and how can you be valuable to that particular part of the market? When it becomes an investor market, be valuable to the investors. If it's a buyer's market, be valuable to the buyers. If it's a seller's market, be valuable to the sellers. And just constant, ever changing of adaptability, learning to be adaptable to what's in front of you right now. I talked to an agent a couple of years ago, and when the 2008 crash hit, his business dropped dramatically. So he learned how to fight tax assessments. And he was charging people, I think, $150 or something like that to put together their tax assessment battle. He would give them all the information, and they would go to the Board of Appeals and fight their taxes. But that kept him alive, kept him in the game,
Yeah.
kept him relevant. And so then when those people, when the market started to turn, they come to list or sale. He's the guy they call because he got them out of a bad situation or whatever. So I'm very big on knowing the game, not just being in the game, but knowing the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. As you were giving so many great examples there, I was thinking, about the current situation where I don't know the percentages anymore. I want to say it's 85% of homeowners in the US have a mortgage rate of less than 4%. That may not be true with a capital T, but it's close enough to where we have a lot of these people like myself, anyone who has a mortgage who's refinanced or, in the last several years probably has a pretty attractive rate. So I think there's a huge opportunity for agents to start having conversations with people like me, people who feel trapped, not trapped, but locked into this low rate, and say, actually, there are some creative solutions. If you did want to move right now, there are ways we can sort of, navigate through high interest rate environments, like buy downs, for
Yes.
example. There,
Yeah.
there are, this is, and this I think is really, really where a good agent is separate from, really divides the good agents from the not good agents, because the good agents will call somebody before they call them, going, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying or selling right now," because maybe there's lots of people right now that aren't thinking about that. But if it was me, I would be calling everybody I know saying, hey, I just want to give you my take on what's going on right now. And
Hmm.
if you are thinking of a move, we do have some options and creative ways to explore that. But again, just establishing that, as you said, I'm just not in the market. I know the market. I know
Yeah.
what's going on. I
Yeah.
think that's so important.
Yeah, yeah, and well, to touch on what you said about the buy downs, that there's one of the things right there that you should be focusing on right now as an agent coming into the game. How does financing work? And one of the first things that I started learning about when I got into business, I would notice. And mind you, I was in the business before the pre-approval thing was a big deal. So now it's pretty much standard. But I remember you could get pre-approval letters, and everybody that was like gold then. Um, but I sat down with a lender. Her name was Brenda Wild. One day I talked to her on the phone and I said, Brenda, what are my qualifying ratios when I'm talking to people? I want to know when I'm holding these conversations with people about buying that, yes, you can afford to buy. So many times, DJ, if somebody said, well, I can't afford to buy. Well, where are you living now? Well, I rent a little apartment. How much you paying? $1,300 a month. Well, $1,300 a month here in the Quad Cities. Our market is about a third of what you are there in Chicago. $1,300 a month will buy you a $150,000 house. And a lot of people don't even realize that. So I've had a lot of success in converting renters into home buyers because they
Yes.
didn't think that they could buy, not realizing what it costs. They don't understand down payment, they don't understand closing costs. So there again, whenever you've got storms like this happening, there's usually programs that all of a sudden spring up to help keep the market afloat. So you learn about first-time home buyer programs. You learn about programs for veterans that veterans can use. There's usually something out there to help people. So you have to go learn that program. Because let's face it, if you're doing 30, 40 transactions a year, and then all of a sudden that drops to 15, you need to make up that difference somewhere if you're going to stay in the game. This is when we see markets like this, is when we'll see the agent count start to drop. It happens
Yeah.
all the time. And as the real estate market picks up, all of a sudden everybody wants to be a realtor because they've watched HGTV and I like houses. I love that's my reason for getting in the business because I like houses. Okay, let's see how long that lasts after you've shown 137 of them in 4 days. But anyhow, just learning where there's always an apple to pick somewhere, and it is watching closely and learning to see what that is. There's always nothing stops dead. There's always some movement somewhere.
Well, and you said something really important earlier, which was about providing value, being of service. And
Yes.
that really is the name of the game in my
Amen.
opinion. And it's really I think it's a creative, fun thing to consider for your business because we have this database of customers we have or prospects, and we go, gosh, I don't. What do I? Why would I? I don't have any reason to call so and so. Well, you should have reasons to call them. You should know a lot about every one of your contacts in your database. You should know what's going on in their lives, and if nothing else, if there's nothing to talk about with real estate, you could at least contact them and celebrate things that they're experiencing, or
Mm-hmm.
helping them with any, like, Jerry, for example, is, he has been doing this 30 years. Do you think he knows the best roofers in town? Of course he does. He knows the best accountants. He knows the best inspectors. So Jerry is this a wide breadth of information that he gets to then reach out to his sphere and say, hey, I'm your guy. I know these things. And of course, that takes time to develop lists like that. But if you can start to put your value proposition together and start to think about how can I continuously add value, people only buy and sell whatever 5 to 10 years, 7 to 10 years, whatever it is. So you better figure out something that you can do in those 7 to 10 year windows where you're going to stay in front of them. And it's probably not just your real estate email newsletter. Hey, that's fine. Whatever, it's fine. But you should be thinking about other things that those customers actually want to learn about during that time,
Mm-hmm.
to obviously just keep your name in front of them.
Yeah, and being very involved with your community. That's where Alex has had huge success. Being very
Yes.
involved in your community. Become the source. I just had a guy text me here last week. He goes, "You're my source, man. When I need something, you're my source." So what a great compliment. And
Oh,
actually,
the
CJ, just
best.
before you and I got online, I was texting a previous client who's like, "Hey, I need somebody to put windows in. Who do you suggest?" Being that go-to source that keeps you in front of people a lot of times. But being involved with your community is another big way. because people recognize your name. And I've been around long enough now, I can be anywhere, Menards or Lowe's, and I'll put down my debit card, and the person will go, "Oh, you the real estate guy?" Yeah, that's awesome. That they know you for that. But there's just being involved on different levels and being of service to everyone around you. That part I think I've done very well. I've been very fortunate to be able to help a lot of people with a lot of things, and a lot of times, DJ, the business comes to me just because of those things,
Yeah.
not because I'm out, pushing my Facebook post or I'm the greatest realtor in town. None of that. It's just because I've established a relationship on a different level through a different avenue, and they know you're the real estate guy, right? Yeah. Why do you ask? You buying or selling? Well, I'm thinking about selling my mom's house, whatever. Next thing you know, that conversation is going. Whenever someone says to me, "You're the real estate guy, right?" I always say, "Are you buying or selling?" Yes, I am. And then we go from there. The conversation
I,
springs into something.
I love that. It reminded me of one of the interviews I had a year or so ago, where a woman gave a suggestion that I had not heard before, and it's so simple. And um, that if you have a local newspaper, for example, most markets do, and reach out to who's ever in charge of the real estate portion of, not necessarily the advertising, but if anyone's the real estate person, to talk about what's going on real estate wise in the community, and start sending them stats. Say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Reporter, I've got some stats about what's
Mm-hmm.
going on out here. I thought maybe that would be helpful for you," because they're looking for content. And I said, "Oh, that's such a smart idea," because people still read newspapers, and as much as we think people don't, some people do, of course. And this is another way to get your name out there and to
Yeah.
be seen as an expert, when you can help a journalist with making sense of what's going on out there's a million ways to do it, to be of service and be of value. And I want to make a big strong push, Jerry, with your help, to encourage our audience to get involved with their local association. I want to talk about why that's important, and how that can benefit the individual, because I wish I would have done that 14 years ago. I just started getting involved about 5 years ago, and I wish I could go back and get involved at our local level earlier, because what it did for me, and I'm curious to get your thoughts, what it did for me is, not only is it a lot of fun, and we do a lot of good work, and we're here to support the industry, the real estate industry, and I got to make some wonderful friends along the way, people who are like-minded, people who want to see the industry succeed, and also just mastermind with all these great agents who also give back. And so I've learned more about the industry. I have a better social life, and I'm doing good out there, or I think we're doing some version of good out there. So I'm just curious. And also, there's so many great things the associations offer that the members oftentimes don't take advantage of. Trainings,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of things. But just I want to make a pitch for everybody to consider getting involved, and just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. There again, when I first got in my career, I was so blessed to have Irene Romeo, who pushed me towards GRI. But I was also, still to this day, I hear this gentleman's voice, I see his face, and I ask questions. Sometimes I get in a situation, and I'll be to myself, what would Fred tell me to do? Fred Dasso, the best broker in the business, as far as I'm concerned. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and he always has an answer, even if he has to make it up. He always has an answer. But I just love talking with him. He's just full of wisdom. But both of those agents were very involved with both those brokers were very involved with the board. They suggested I get involved with the board, and I did. I got involved with the board very early on with the professional standards, the grievance committee, the regional professional standards, sitting on different various committees throughout the board. And we have a dynamite board of realtors, but it teaches you, not only do you get to know the players and who's who in real estate, but you also see the adversity sometimes that people are dealing with from a whole different perspective. See, it's very easy as an agent to, you have a rub with another agent somewhere and you're defending your position. But if you get out of yourself and get into what is that person experiencing, and by being on the board and hearing, especially on like the grievance committees and professional standards, you hear those stories and things going on, and then you start to have a little more compassion for, I get it, I know why they got in this position, but it helps getting yourself in that position, at some point in time, and it just helps move the board forward as well. So I cringe a little bit when somebody complains about well, the board raised the rates again. Well, of course they did. Just look at the economy in general. That's not the board trying to gouge you. The board's trying to keep up. So I get a little offended sometimes when people complain about our board, because our board does a lot for us. We have a great MLS. We have a great key safe system. We have great leadership. We're in great position financially. And that's all from having good people sitting at the table. So you learn a lot from the inner workings of the business when you're involved at the board level as well. It's not, you're not just seeing it from your little perspective. It's seeing it from the overall marketplace that you're in. So highly, highly encourage getting involved with the board at some point in time.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I'd be shocked if it didn't result in actually indirectly getting you more business, even though that's not why you're going to
Oh,
do it.
well, sure it does. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I think I told you earlier. A lot of the commercial referrals I get are from residential agents, even from other brokerages. They have their own brokers, and they'll refer me people because I can speak their language, or I've sat on a committee with them, and at some point in time, so I've established that relationship. There's a dynamite agent here in the Quad Cities. His name is John Locust, and he's told me once. I saw him last year at a class I was teaching, and he said, you have two reputations in this business: one from your peers and one from the public. And that is very true. That is very true. So
Yeah, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that for Jerry again. We have two reputations in our industry: one with our peers. Remember, it is called a cooperative commission. Everybody, cooperative
yeah,
compensation, and with our clients as well.
yeah,
So those are two separate things, and oftentimes the relationship between the agent and the customer might be different from the agent and to other agents, and you want to have a good relationship with both because you both have to play in the same sandbox. And
absolutely, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
yeah, I want to talk about the importance of learning the market. So when people are newer to the industry, of course, the primary focus is on lead generation, as it probably should be, and they also have to become good at the job, which of course we're
Hmm.
talking about skills. So I want to talk about actually becoming a good realtor. So there's the marketing side, the lead gen side. I've talked about that a ton on this show over the years. Million ways to lead generate. I would like to speak to you and get some best practices in your opinion about if I was a newer agent and I'm focusing in a local area. How might I start to learn about the actual inventory, price points? What do you recommend? Because ultimately, you do want to be an expert in some geographical area.
Yeah. And again, that's where Alex has excelled. He's learned his neighborhood just by walking the streets, getting involved with neighborhood associations, those sort of things. And myself, because we're in the Quad Cities, there's a large difference between the Iowa and Illinois sides of the river, valuation wise. Big difference. In fact, the
Mm.
joke is for a lot of us, it's not the Mississippi River, it's the Mississippi Ocean, because there is a huge divide between the two sides of the states. If you're an outsider coming in, a lot of it looks like one big city here to us. But from those of us who live here, it's very territorial. The difference between Iowa and Illinois, and the Iowans, to try to get somebody from Iowa to come to Illinois is very difficult. Although there's one little catch to that, but there seems to be more people moving from Illinois going to the Iowa side. The property taxes are less, those sort of things. So by knowing your market is knowing not only the price of the home, the sale price of the home, how many days on market. That's all stuff you can get from your stats, and by looking at it. But knowing what makes those areas tick, what makes those neighborhoods work, like Alex talks about the neighborhoods that he's worked in. He knows the the history of a lot of those homes. He knows who owns those homes. He knows who lives in them now, those sort of things. Same as myself. I look at things more I'm a very mechanical person. I'm blessed with the ability to fix or build anything. In fact, 20 minutes before I got online with you, I was putting brick and mortar on some columns I'm building outside. But I learned the neighborhoods from the architecture, from the years they were built, from the mechanicals that were used to build them. Like, for example, a simple example would be here. We have certain neighborhoods that have this sewer system called Orangeburg pipe. Not all four cities have it. Moline hardly used it at all. Rock Island uses it a lot. Bettendorf, the older parts of Bettendorf used it. Northwest Davenport used it a lot. It's failing across the board. It's getting old enough now that it's collapsing. It's not a question of will it collapse, it's just when. So when I'm representing buyers going through those particular neighborhoods, I'm asking, is that house where's Orangeburg pipe used there? Because that's going to set forth an inspection that maybe I would not use in Moline. So knowing your market that way, not only valuations and wise, but what makes that neighborhood work? Where are the city streets? Where's their development coming? Like if you go to Bettendorf and North Davenport, the 53rd Avenue corridor, I know you don't know what that is, but 20 years ago, that was cornfield. Now it's 200,000 plus per acre to go out there. So if I'm leading an investor and he's going to be looking for long-term buy and hold properties, let's go where the growth is next. So our cash flow may be a little less right now, but in the end result of property value increase. So it's knowing the market that way as well, and not just average sale price and things of that nature. There's so many other things. In the intrinsic values is what I call it. What else is happening there? Are there school closings coming up? Are there school boards merging? Is there? We just had a new Amazon development that come into town here this year. Where is that? What's going to happen around that area? We have an area called the TBK that's growing like wildfire out there. Those sort of things. It's knowing the market from that aspect as well as the dollar values and things of that nature. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I was just thinking the one specific example about the Amazon, like a distribution center or whatever's
Yeah.
coming out your way. That's a really interesting sort of comment, because there is opportunity there, because now we know they're going to be hiring people to work at this particular plant, or maybe they already have people there, but just getting curious about what is that going to do? Where are those people going to come from who are going to work there? Where will those people maybe live? What would their commute look like? If they are coming from further away and maybe they now want to move closer to the facility, where are the school districts that are desirable for people? Understanding that what the needs of those, here's what's coming situations, I think are make you just incredibly valuable. You're more proactive than reactive, because
Yes.
yes. I wanted to also switch gears and talk a little bit about commercial, because we have about 800 agents at our firm, and boy, a lot of them who are really residential agents go, I would like to dabble a little bit in commercial. And of course, that's like, what does that even mean? Because there's lots of different sectors of commercial. And of course, it's not just you can't paint it all with the same brush. Commercial could mean lots and lots of different things, but you really straddle both, which is impressive and difficult. So I'm curious about, how did you get into commercial and why?
Um, being being a business owner in the past, commercial use was important to me because I needed space. I needed a shop space, and it's probably one of the calls I get most is for people for shop space. But um, I just had an interest in it and watching it, and I like math and working with numbers. You work with numbers a lot, and I noticed there was a void. There was a void in that marketplace as far as people being serviced, and a lot of it was from intimidation. A person wants to start a business and they're not sure where they're going to find space, or they don't know what a triple net lease is. They don't know the difference between a triple net and a gross. And they don't know what CAM charges are. And it wasn't being explained to them on many levels. And there used to be signs. I remember seeing signs up that would say, in front of a space, it would say available. Well, what does available mean? Does it mean it's for sale? Does it mean it's for rent? What does available mean? And so I just started learning the language itself, and managed to get into a couple of transactions, and started learning from there. But there's the difference, DJ. I started learning. I didn't just do the transaction and get a commission and walk away. I wanted to know the why. How does it work? So started doing a lot of reading leases, just going through them and reading, what does that mean? Calling an attorney and say, okay, this clause says this. What exactly does that mean? And took a CCIM course, some different CCIM courses, reading articles in Realtor Magazine, truly learning what it's like, or what it is to be a commercial practitioner. Because I truly believe with the whole of my heart that commercial and residential should be two different licenses. and they're not. And unfortunately, I was looking at one of your podcasts from another gentleman. I can't remember where he's from, but he's talked about staying in your lane and referring out. I think he said when he bought his own house, he referred to a residential agent to buy his own house because he didn't know that area. And unfortunately, our license gives us the ability to list and sell just about anything. And that creates problems. And the commercial practitioners, they get irritated when a residential person is trying to do a deal with them. And I can see why. Then that agent will call me and say, well, he won't talk to me or won't give me the information. And it's because you're not going to know what to do with it even if they gave it to you. And if you're going to represent a tenant, for example, let's take a tenant that's going to go and lease this space, and it's $13 a square foot, net lease, and you got a CAM of $7 a square foot, and you can't calculate that rent. Or you look at their lease and you can't determine if it has an escalation clause, and what is that escalation clause? What is the escalation clause based on as far as the rent increase, those sort of things. There's so much trouble that you can get a person into because you didn't know how to play that particular game or didn't know how to guide them. And you should really stay out of that, because if you think about it, I take it very personal as my responsibility. If I'm representing a tenant and I'm getting
We lost Jerry there for just a second. He'll be popping right back in. So bear with us just a moment. Working on getting Jerry back. So bear with us, please. There's Jerry. Okay, once.
I don't
All
know
right,
where I was doing
that's
okay.
okay. You were just finishing up with well, you were just talking about commercial and how uh maybe referring out is staying in one's lane and
Yeah.
not necessarily practicing until you're competent,
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of, so
yeah,
to speak.
yeah, exactly. So if you're going to do a commercial, Ted, you use the term dabble. I hear that all the time. I
Yeah,
don't
don't
want to
dabble.
dabble in commercial. Don't dabble. You're the financial responsibility that you have for that client is huge, and it could be the determining factor of their business profitable or not, because you got them in a bad lease, in a bad position or something, or they made a bad purchase. And there's so much more than just pricing and dollar per square foot and all that. It's what's the environmental outlay look like? Is there potential problems there? I lost a listing once because I noticed a test spot on the building, and I asked the gentleman about it, and he's like, "Oh, that's nothing." I'm like, no, it's not nothing, because across the parking lot I see a trailer over there that says environmental survey or something. I'm like, what is this all about? Come to find out, he had been contaminated by a neighboring gas station, and he didn't want anyone to know that. And so when I asked him to prove to me you've got a clean site, it cost him $5,000, but it made him angry, and he pulled the listing from me, and I was okay with that. I'm okay with that. Take that listing
Right.
if you can't be honest with it. But yeah, so you've got to know the game. It's more than just making a commission, because you can make huge, especially in commercial, you can make some really big mistakes, and people are relying on you, the expert, and you did not give them expert advice.
Yeah, I agree. So if or at the very least, partner with a commercial
Hmm.
agent and be, their
Yeah.
apprentice or be their shadow while you are educating yourself on the transaction. Just make your life as easy as possible. Don't take on clients that you can't
Yeah,
obviously
yeah. No,
service. It's just not going to
it's not
work.
only make
Yeah.
your life easy, but it's take care of that client the best way you can. And some way, I would not go to my dentist to get my ankle operated on. They're both in the medical profession, but they'd be able to figure it
Right.
out maybe. But no, I take that responsibility very, very personally, and I wish more agents would do so. there's a lot to know in the commercial world, and you need to learn that game. Yes, you can bang your way through. I'm happy to help anyone who will get through a transaction, but I don't partner very often. I've been asked to do 50-50. I've always turned it down except for one occasion, because it won't be 50-50. It'd be more like 75-25. And so I've offered it, if someone wants to 50-50, look, I'll coach you through if you want to try the transaction, but you need to put in your time. You need to serve your pain, because there's a lot to learn. It's not going to be as easy as you think it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think for everyone listening right now, to sort of recap everything Jerry was talking about on the show, we on this episode, I think we're really speaking of his competence, and I think or
Yes.
skill development maybe is a
Yes.
better way to say it. Let's make 2024 the year of skill development. So how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to lean on your brokerage for additional trainings. You're going to seek out certifications like GRI, certified negotiation expert like Jerry, who's does both. You're going to reach out to your local association, not just to maybe serve on a committee, but also to find out what are they
Mm-hmm.
offering, what sort of trainings and support are they providing to agents. Remember, we do pay our associations quite a bit of money, so there are lots of services. I'm on our member care task force here in Chicago. I didn't even know all of the benefits and services that we provide to our members
Yeah.
until now I'm the vice chair of the committee, and I still don't know them all by heart. So reach out to your local association, especially if you're struggling, and say, hey, I am struggling right now. Do you have any suggestions for classes I can take, people I can talk to? So, and also, as Jerry said, we got to learn the market, right? So this is a great opportunity to really do a deep dive into your local market, get that expertise so that when people do reach out to you, you have knowledge about what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. Jerry, of course, does 30 years in the business. I think this is a great place to wrap up. I do want to encourage anyone who's a buyer, seller, an investor, commercial or residential, who is interested in doing something in the Quad Cities area. Jerry Wolking is your man. Please reach out to him. Jerry, if there are any buyers, sellers, investors out there that would love to speak to somebody with your expertise, what's the best way they should reach out to you?
Best way for me, actually, DJ, is to text me, because I respond to text. We get so many bombarded with people trying to sell us internet services and marketing services. Text me, because then I have a bit greater chance of knowing that you're real and that you're legit. So, or email. Email works for me very well, also. Yeah,
Do you mind sharing your
yeah.
number
The
and your
number is
email?
309-373-0373. And the email is jerrywalkingkw@gmail.com.
Well, Jerry Wolking, Keller Williams Quad Cities, not only a 30-year veteran in the industry, amazing reputation, and has now a son who is crushing it here in the Chicago market. This is the first time we've done a father-son, not combined episode, but had a father and son on the show at different times. So it is no surprise how and why Alex is doing so well, Jerry. So congrats to you on your career, and also on raising another realtor in the
Thank you.
family who is not just surviving, but thriving in this market. So please check out Alex's episode, and let's send Jerry's episode to anyone else in your area, any other realtor that may be struggling right now. Guess what? Everybody's struggling a
Mm-hmm.
little bit right now. So send them a link to this episode. The best way you can help us, our listeners, is by telling a friend. Just think of one other realtor that could benefit from all the great stuff Jerry said, and shoot them over a link to this episode. Also, leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. We would greatly appreciate. On behalf of our audience, I want to thank Jerry for coming on. We appreciate you, Jerry. Thank you. You gave us tons of great strategic sort of objectives that we can do right now. And on behalf of our audience, I want to thank Jerry for spending his time with us today. We will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you,
Thanks,
DJ.
Jerry.
You're awesome. Thank you, man.